A thing of beauty is joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but still will keep a bower quiet for us, and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Welcome to a new video of mine with a new lecture on a new topic. These lines that I've just recited, they were from Keats' famous poem Endymion. So yes, today we are going to discuss a topic related to John Keats, and the topic is John Keats as a poet of beauty. Every poet deals with the concept of beauty, the element of beauty in their surroundings, whether they find it in natural objects, in human face, in some old building, or in anything. Every poet directly or indirectly concerns with the concept of beauty, the element of beauty in their surroundings. And this is also true of John Keats. But John Keats as a poet of beauty is sharply different from the rest of the poets. Rest of the poets do talk about beauty, do go for beauty in their surroundings, but their concept of beauty, their discussion and depiction of beauty in their poetry is temporary one. This is not their sole target. This is not their sole purpose. They do have certain other concerns, certain other aims and objectives to be presented in their poetry. Whereas on the other hand, John Keats' sole purpose of writing poetry is to talk about beauty, beauty and nothing else but beauty, which is why he is called the poet of beauty. If we compare John Keats with other poets in English literature like John Milton, William Wordsworth and P.B. Shelley, then we will clearly note a sharp difference in their treatment of beauty in their poetry. John Milton in his Paradise Lost gives us an elaborate description of paradise, its beauties, its attractions. But the basic purpose of John Milton is not to talk about beauty in his epic Paradise Lost. The basic purpose is to present a religious point of view, a religious theme through that epic. On the other hand, there is William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth is also concerned with beauty, right? He also likes beauty in all the natural objects that he depicts in the world of his poetry. P.B. Shelley also talks about beauty in the world of his poetry, but his depiction of beauty is a passing passion. It is something temporary with him. The basic aim of Shelley's poetry is to communicate his revolutionary ideas, his revolutionary ideals, and revolutionary passion and fervor to the readers. Whereas on the other hand, John Keats solely concerns with beauty and nothing else but beauty in his poetry. Here, this is something that makes John Keats different from the rest of the poets in English literature. So let's discuss certain other aspects of John Keats as a poet of beauty. First important aspect of John Keats' poetry as a poet of beauty is Keats' special love for beauty. It is said that Keats loves beauty in all its forms and shapes, whether it exists in the form of Song of a Nightingale, in the form of beautiful autumn season, or in the form of different pictures carved at the surface of a Grecian earth. For John Keats, the very idea of beauty, the very concept of beauty, or anything that is beautiful, provides an eternal, permanent pleasure and joy to the viewers and spectators. For example, this idea is expressed by Keats in his famous poem Endymion in these lines. A thing of beauty is joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but still will keep a bower quiet for us, and a sleep full of sweet dreams, and health and quiet breathing. Now, these lines of John Keats prove that John Keats is a strong lover of beauty, and he believes that beauty is not something that is temporary. It is something permanent, and it provides you pleasure under all the circumstances of life. A beautiful object, a beautiful thing is like a beautiful sound sleep, full of sweet dreams. A beautiful thing in nature is very much like a bower, a shady place in which a person can sit and enjoy the coolness of it and the quietness of it. In another statement, Keats says that I love principle of beauty in all its forms and shapes. So this proves that Keats is a lover of beauty, not a particular form of beauty. Rather, if beauty is there in this type of form or that type of form, he loves beauty, he desires beauty, he is a staunch, strong lover of beauty. Next important aspect of Keats' poetry as a poet of beauty is Keats' sensuousness as a poet of beauty. There is a close relationship between Keats' concept of beauty and his sensuousness. In fact, it is his sensuousness, extreme sensuousness, that leads him to the mighty abstract idea of beauty, which he discovers later on in the poetic career. He feels that mighty abstract idea of beauty is permanent. It cannot see the face of death. In famous line, he says about nightingale, "Thou was not born for death, immortal bird, no hungry generations tread thee down." So this line of Ode to a Nightingale clearly proves that John Keats has discovered a mighty abstract idea of beauty. Mighty in the sense that it is permanent. It cannot be killed by the time, cruel time. Keats' sensory experience helps him to discover beauty in all forms and in all shapes. He finds beauty in nature through his ears. He finds beauty in nature through his eyes, through his sense of taste, through his sense of touch, through his sense of smell. And in this way, enjoys beauty through different senses. For example, he listens to the song of nightingale and he enjoys this song of nightingale through his sense of hearing. Then in the very poem, he feels that there is fragrance all around him in his surroundings of certain flowers. And out of curiosity, he questions in a line and says, "What incense hangs upon the boughs?" So here, John Keats clearly discovers beauty through his sense of smell. He finds that there is a beautiful smell of certain flowers in the darkness in a forest-like area in the poem Ode to a Nightingale. In order to enjoy the beautiful taste of a wine called claret, John Keats spreads cayenne pepper, a kind of chili, a kind of pepper, upon his tongue, from the tip of his tongue down to his throat, just to enjoy the beautiful coldness and deliciousness of the wine. This proves that his extreme sensuousness leads him to discover the very concept of beauty that is there in a certain wine. So in this way, he enjoys beauty through his five senses. So in other words, John Keats' sensuousness, extreme sensuousness, leads him towards the idea of beauty, to the discovery of beauty in his poetry. The very opening lines of Ode to Autumn tells us about the extreme sensuousness of John Keats, and it's his love of extreme sensuous beauty. He says in the opening of Ode to Autumn, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of maturing sun, conspires with him how to load and bless with fruits the vines that round the Thechive run. So these lines clearly prove that John Keats is in love with the autumn, season of autumn, just because of the fact that it is the month, it is the season during which different types of fruits they become ripe. So just to enjoy its ripeness, he talks about this beautiful aspect of autumn season. Next important aspect of Keats' poetry as a poet of beauty is intellectual beauty. In the beginning of his career, John Keats was totally absorbed in the world of his senses. He was only relishing and enjoying the sensuous beauty in his surroundings. In simpler words, he was enjoying the beauty of the world through his five senses. But later on, as he developed, as his mental capacities, intellectual capacities developed with the passage of time, then he traveled from sensuous beauty to find the intellectual beauty. When he discovers the intellectual beauty, there he finds the mighty abstract idea of beauty. And this mighty abstract idea of beauty is permanent one. It is not temporary one. For example, in the poem Ode on Grecian Urn, he equates beauty with truth. He says that beauty is truth, truth beauty. So he believes that truth is beautiful, and same is the case with the beauty in the natural objects, right? So he believes that beauty is as permanent, as convincing, as truthful as is truth itself. So here there is clear note of intellectualism in his concept of beauty. Here Keats does not merely talk about sensuous beauty, rather he travels from sensuousness or sensuous beauty to intellectual beauty and discovers a close and strong relationship between beauty and truth. Then in the same poem, Ode on a Grecian Urn, he says, heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore, ye soft pipes, play on, not to the sensual ear, but more endeared, play to the spirit, ditties of no tone. So these lines from the ode clearly prove that John Keats feels that intellectual beauty, which is unheard melodies, is superior to the heard melodies, which is sensuous beauty. Then in Ode to Autumn, John Keats says that, where are the songs of spring? Where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. In these lines, Keats clearly finds beauty in apparently the uglier aspect of life, which is autumn. Autumn is often compared with tragedy, sorrow, separation, negativities of life. Here, John Keats finds beauty even in the month of autumn, which is an ugliness in nature. So this clearly proves that John Keats is capable of, especially in the latter part of his poetry, traveling from sensuous beauty to intellectual beauty. And he feels that autumn is as beautiful as is the month of season of spring. The moment John Keats accepts the beautiful aspects of nature, here he seems to have broadly accepted life as it is. He seems to have developed negative capability. Negative capability is the capability of a poet with the help of which he brushes aside his personality, his likes and dislikes, and he accepts the reality in its totality. with its good points, with its bad point, with its positivity, with its negativity. And in the light of this negative capability, John Keats can be compared with William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare has a remarkable negative capability, has a remarkable talent of self-effacement. Next important aspect of Keats' poetry as a poet of beauty is worldly and natural or artistic beauty. John Keats prefers natural or artistic beauty over worldly beauty because he believes that worldly beauty is temporary one and natural and artistic beauty is permanent one. In a famous line, John Keats says that beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes. In other words, in this world, temporary beauty cannot live forever. It has to die. It has to perish one day. On the other hand, he believes that natural or artistic beauty is permanent one. Natural beauty is, for example, in the form of the Song of a Nightingale. Song of the Nightingale or Nightingale itself represents the mighty abstract idea of beauty, which Keats finds to be permanent. He believes that that particular nightingale which sings a song may die, may perish away, but its song which represents beauty, it would live forever. It will never die. And same is his belief about artistic beauty. And this view is expressed by John Keats in the poem Ode on Grecian Urn. On the Grecian urn, there are different pictures carved out. One is that of a tree, other is that of a piper who is sitting beneath the tree with his sheeps, and then there is a lover, and then there is a beloved. While talking about all these things on the Grecian urn, John Keats says that the piper will never perish. Its song will never perish. And the lover and the beloved who are running, they would never die. Their love would be permanent. They would forever remain young. The love of the lover would remain forever. And the beloved would remain beautiful. And the boughs would never see the face of autumn. They would never shed and fall and get mixed into the dust. They are permanent. Why? Because art has converted them into something permanent. So he believes that art makes beauty permanent. So this is a clear evidence which proves that Keats later on, through his intellectual experience, prefers permanent beauty or artistic beauty and natural beauty over worldly beauty or temporary beauty. Last but not the least aspect of John Keats' poetry as a poet of beauty is Keats as a pure poet. Keats as a pure poet goes hand in hand with his concept of beauty, his love for beauty. His love for beauty is actually something that made him a pure poet. It was his strong love for beauty in all its forms and shapes that led him towards the creation of art for the sake of art, poetry for the sake of poetry, or in simple words, pure kind of literature, pure kind of poetry. So if he is a pure poet, it is solely because of the fact that Keats was lover of beauty. He did not want to preach any kind of morality, any kind of social message, any kind of political message, any kind of agenda through his poetry. He did not want his poetry to have a palpable design upon the mind and heart of the readers. Rather, his purpose was to talk about beauty, beauty and nothing else but beauty in the world of his poetry. So in this way, he talks about only beauty in his poetry, and in this way he becomes a pure poet of beauty. In a famous line, an Urdu poet, Majid Amjad, says, मैं शायर हूँ मेरी बाली निगाह में, मैं शायर हूँ मेरी बाली निगाह में, ज़रा भी नहीं फ़र्क ज़र्रे में माँ में. Let me explain these lines. According to these lines, Majid Amjad says that I am a poet. And in my superior eye, there's no difference between a moon and a particle of dust, a particle of sand. For me, sand or particle of dust is as beautiful as is the moon. This is the job of a poet, to find beauty even in a particle of sand, to find as much of beauty even in a particle of dust, which an ordinary eye normally discovers in the moon. So this is the job of the poet, and this is also done by John Keats in the world of his poetry. So this is it for today. I hope you would benefit a lot from my today's lecture. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.